So welcome back, and this session we're going to be discussing our pharmacy and several items, and for the end of this session we will end at complaints and grievances and how that's handled in the agency per compliance and regulations. Those words are going to keep coming out. You're going to hear them as we go forward. Being hospice or any medical organization, you have medications that are involved. Ours are more involved with comfort care. They could be also for anxiety or for breathing, for people that have COPD or respiratory problems. So there's a whole variety. Edema, maybe they have swelling. So there's just a variety of medications that we use and cover in hospice. We have to, by regulation, have a pharmacy oversight. Our oversight or benefit manager is Optum. So every patient that we have is enrolled in Optum. They automatically flow over into the Optum EMR, for lack of another word for that one. But all the information about that patient that we enter into Consolo, our EMR, goes immediately to Optum. They have pharmacists there, and they're continually going over all patients, not just ours, because they have several hospices throughout the United States. They are continually looking for, and red flags will come up for this medication is contraindicated, or you're on two medications that are doing the same thing. So you need to probably discuss this with the caregiver, with the physician. And that would be done immediately or at the IDG meeting, depending on what comes first, or which is, if it's a very important medication, contraindication, that discussion will occur immediately. So they are overseeing everything. They're our oversight pharmacy benefit manager. Our pharmacy, where the medications come from, is Safety Drugs. And you see them throughout Phoenix. Safety Drugs is here. And so our orders from the physician go to Safety Drugs, and Safety Drugs delivers the medication straight to the patient. So no one has to pick it up. Everything is delivered right to the patient's home or wherever they reside, whether it's an assisted living or group home or memory care. It's delivered and signed for, so that we know that that follow through has occurred. And then when the nurse comes, they do a medication reconciliation to make sure that the medication is the proper medication and that the dosages are correct, and that the caregiver or the patient knows how the proper way is to give that medication. In hospice, we have 4 levels of care designed specifically for the needs of the patient and the caregivers. We discussed 2 of them, GIP, General Inpatient Unit, and Respite, but the main level of care is called routine, and this is when the patient is in their residence, wherever they reside, and the nurse, the aide, the social worker, the chaplains all go there, not at the same time, but they all go there when their visits are required to see the patient and do the assessments and do whatever is required, and then have a discussion or a text with the doctor to let them know what's going on. That's routine. That is when we have the patient comfortable. When a patient is admitted, everyone, especially the caregivers, the family members, are very tense and have the deer in the headlights look. So there's a lot of intense education when a patient is admitted onto hospice. The patient may be in pain or short of breath or have some other exacerbation. So our service at that point, our visits by the nurses, are more intense. They may see them daily and calling daily, or have someone following up. How's this medication working? They're going to follow up and make sure our treatment plan is working. That's and then as they become comfortable, then the visits are backed off. So they may start out seeing the patient every day or every other day with a call in between, and then maybe back off to twice a week, depending on the patient's need. The next step up would be respite when the caregiver gets exhausted. Respite is only available for those that are residing in a resident at home, or living with a spouse or a child or a friend or a relative. That's respite, to give them a rest. The next level would be GIP, for that acute care that we could not get a hold of. We couldn't get it under control. We couldn't get in front of whatever that problem was, whatever that pain was, or nausea and vomiting. So they go into GIP for short term. Medicare would prefer us to get in front of any acute problem within 48 hours. Sometimes that's possible. If you get the pain under control by being there continually and titrating medications, then you want to wait 24 hours to make sure that it's going to last at this level, so that when they go home, you won't have to repeat having them go to another location. Being transferred from one location to another is stressful, and we don't want to be that. So we want to make sure that whatever the problem is under control. Respite is 5 days. They can go once a month for respite, giving whoever's taking care of them that rest. GIP, there is no limit on the days, but it's expected to be less, not more. We're expected to get that under control so that the patient can go back home, back to where they live. If a patient is residing in an assisted living facility or a group home, they can go GIP. Assisted livings don't normally have a registered nurse. They may have an LPN, but they don't normally have a registered nurse. But that's where they live. That's where they reside. So if they have an acute exacerbation of pain or shortness of breath or whatever their disease process is, then they would be transferred to a skilled nursing facility or an inpatient unit for short-term GIP to get that under control and then bring them back to where they reside. The fourth level is continuous care. Continuous care is very special. This is when the patient requires more attention than the caregivers can give. Maybe a higher level of medication or whatever's going on, an exacerbation, but you don't really want to transport them. Continuous care, the nurse or nurses can alternate, can go in and stay a minimum of 8 hours out of 24 hours a day. You could stay longer than that if required, to bring that exacerbation down to a comfortable level. And that's called continuous care. Hospices will give it different names, but it's keeps them from being transferred, keeps them from being transported from here to here and then back to home. It's just an excellent way of caring for the patient. Not every patient needs it, not every patient requires it, but when it's required, it is such a great thing. It's a great deal of extra documentation. Every 15 minutes to a half hour, there has to be documentation. What are you doing? Why is it necessary? What caused this? What is the plan? Are you following the plan? Is the plan working? Have you talked to the doctor? All of these things are taken into the documentation area, and you're continuing, you're repositioning, you're giving medication, you're suctioning, you're doing something with that patient that the caregiver isn't able to do at that time, or is afraid to do because maybe the patient is declining transitioning and the caregiver has stressed out, but we don't want to move them. There's several reasons for continuous care, and this is determined by the IDG group, speaking with the medical director, and through following good documentation that leads up to the need for the continuous care. There's another level of care called SIA care, and this is at the end of life, specifically the last 7 days of care. And this has just started in the last 2 to 3 years that Medicare has made this benefit available to us. That when the patient transitions and you see imminent death, it's going to occur probably within 7 days. For those last 7 days, a nurse can go in or alternate with another nurse, can go in and stay up to 4 hours. That also can take in a social worker. So the nurse can be there 2 hours and a social worker can be there 2 hours. Or a nurse can be there 3 hours and a social worker. It's a different level of pay, but it's support for the patient, it's support for the family when that patient is transitioning, and that is so important for us to be there. That's what it's all about, is for us to be there for them. It's hospice, it's end of life. Be there for them. That's what we do. There are 4 core requirements. 4 core requirements for hospice. As far as staffing, you need to have, number 1, a medical director, and that would be a medical doctor, MD, or osteopathic doctor. Has to be one of the 2. Doesn't state specifically what area of medicine they have to be in. They can be a surgeon, they can be a kidney doctor, they can be cancer, doesn't matter, medical or osteopathic. There has to be an RN, right? That makes sense. RNs are the ones that are visiting and doing the assessment and communicating with the doctor. So an RN is an absolute. If they elect hospice care, they have to have a doctor and they have to have an RN. The RN has to be welcomed in to see the patient. If they don't want an RN to come in and see them, then they're not ready for hospice. That's just a given. The next one that is a core is a social worker, a medical social worker. That's part of the core. The social worker helps arrange the funeral, where it's going to take place, not arrange the funeral, but give them the mortuaries. A social worker helps with arranging if they need finances, what's their financial level now, can they get access or another area of financial help, and it's not access, and I forget what it's called right now. But there's other levels that the state has that can help with financial help. Not for hospice care, but for other living expenses. The other area that's required is a counselor. 99% of the hospices, that counselor can be the social worker because they counsel. They're there for the emotional needs, the mental needs, mental and emotional comfort. But also we have chaplains, and a chaplain is absolutely, definitely a counselor. So but it doesn't have to be a chaplain. Can we wear more than one hat? Absolutely. A social worker can be at both the social worker and the counselor. The nurse can be the nurse. That's the hat the nurse is going to be. The doctor can wear the doctor hat. That's what he has to wear, or she. But the social worker can wear 2 hats. Those are the 4 core requirements. That will be on a quiz coming up, just to give you a heads up. Let's go on now. Let's talk about incident reports, because incidents happen. An incident is anything out of the ordinary that happens. An incident could be a fall, injury or not, non-injury. That either one, it's an incident. An incident could be the equipment malfunctioned. That's an incident. It's also a complaint, and it's also a report because the equipment broke down. An incident can be almost anything. So reports have to be made on those. And then I track those reports to make sure that there's not a trend. That's what I look for in all my auditing. I'm looking for trends. And if I see a trend occurring, then I discuss it. I always give my reports to the administrator and to the board. That's what I do. That's in the regulations also. But when I see a trend developing, I don't wait for the time to give a report. I notify them immediately so we can take action, either with a plan of action, POA, plan of action, and that's something that requires immediate attention. If the patient's safety is in danger, that would be a plan of action. Plan of correction, a plan of action is usually within 48 hours or sooner. Usually, depending on the danger, the safety, then it's going to be sooner. Plan of correction would be with documentation, and the documentation isn't painting the picture, then there's going to be a plan of correction. That can be agency-wide or it can be individual. If we see an individual struggling, which we're always having the education, but we'll call them in and sit down and let's have a plan of correction. Let's see what you missed. Where did we miss? And give you education. What step was missed to make this more difficult? Let's step back and let's make a plan to correct it so that you succeed. We always want you to succeed. And it doesn't matter what discipline or what area you are in the agency, our goal is for you to be successful. We don't want to set you up for the opposite. The next area is complaints and grievances, and unfortunately people complain. A complaint can be from a facility about one of our staff, or from a patient about one of our staff, or a complaint can be about they don't like the over-the-bed tray. It's not what they wanted. They had something else in mind. That can be a complaint. It's also an incident. If it's not working, it's an incident, it's a complaint, and it is reported, especially if it's safety. Complaints can be about almost anything. We can also complain. The employees can complain. It's not really like going in and, complaining, but it's a concern, but it's called a complaint. Especially if they have a patient or a family member that is very difficult, then how do we best do this and take care of that patient and give them the care that we need to give them? Or perhaps it's not a safe situation for our staff to go in. Maybe there's guns around, drugs. That happens. So that would be a concern, but it would also be written up as a complaint so that we can deal with it. And then a discussion would be held. And maybe a contract is written up if it's a concern of safety with the patient or with our staff member. Then we would write a contract with that family that while they're there, the dogs will be placed in a bedroom with the door shut, or the guns would be put out of sight, or the illegal drugs would be put out of sight. There's all kinds of areas. There's several types of areas where there could be a concern, which could be safety, which would be a complaint. Grievances, similar to a complaint. Occasionally, rarely, here, I haven't seen it, but rarely, that's why I say that. There's grievances and staff members may not get along. So if they can't talk and settle it between themselves, just talk, communicate. Maybe someone's having a bad day. Maybe there's something personal going on and they came across the wrong way and abruptly. Well, find out first. Don't get personal, but it's something going on. Can I help you? You seem out of sorts today. Can I help you with anything? Those are the areas where instead of immediately going to the administrator or immediately going to HR, talk to each other. Usually it's something that you don't have, you're not aware of that's going on, and it's nothing against you. It's nothing against the agency. It's that someone's having a problem at home, or maybe they just don't feel good. Maybe it's a bad hair day. Maybe it's raining. I love a rainy day. I won't sing, but I love to. That's one of my favorite songs. So find out first. First, try to resolve what's going on. If that doesn't work, then go the next step. Don't ever just jump over someone's head. Follow the chain of command. There's not that many chains here yet. So that would be how we handle complaints and grievances. And I am not sure, do I go on or keep going, or do you need a break? Okay. So with that, we're going to move on to the personnel, policy and procedures. I am pretty sure that Valerie will give you policy and procedures for what is expected, our expectations of you and your behavior. And you will sign a sheet if you haven't already that you have received it and read it. Probably haven't read it, but know that there are policies and procedures for personnel. How we present ourselves, our actions, how we speak to each other. This is a profession, and we're professional, and we have fun, and it's okay to laugh and have fun, but there are boundaries that we stop for being professional. We are the agency, and so we always have to keep that in mind, that we represent Phoenician Hospice. And we're here because we feel that Phoenician Hospice is a good fit to us. Their mission and vision statements are something that we believe in the same way. And so we represent them wherever we go. Even when we're off duty, however, the agency can't tell us what to do or not to do. Just always keep in mind that social media and driving, somehow it'll come out and there's a bad ding against Phoenician Hospice, if not on you. And that we see that quite often in the news, that someone did something silly or stupid and put it on Facebook, and then their employer finds out about it, and then the news finds out about it, and that was on the news today even, but I won't go into that because it's just not hospice, but it happens. So always be aware that we represent the company, and if we're here, we should be proud of our company. There are dress codes. We're not supposed to come to work without a shower and clean. If you're seeing patients, you shouldn't wear cologne or perfume. If you're seeing patients, your nails should not be, if you hold your hand up, you shouldn't be able to see the nails. They should be even with the fingertips so that you don't injure the patients. Dress code for seeing the patients, we provide scrubs for the nurses and scrubs for the aides, so that, and it has our insignia on it, so that people know, here comes my Phoenician Hospice nurse, here comes my Phoenician Hospice aide. And they're happy to see us, and that also puts us out there. There is that dress code. Shoes, when you go see patients, you wear closed-toed shoes, just because it can get dangerous. Another area in policy and procedure for personnel is email responses. Remember, it is a professional email system that we're emailing. to each other. We're emailing different information about patients or needs. So keep it professional. That's what's expected. And if someone offers you help, remember to say thank you. On Tiger Text, that's also our professional communication board. It's a texting system, but that's where all of our communication goes prior to IDG or needed telephone calls, but even our medical director is on there and he responds rapidly. When he sees Tiger Texts that need his attention, you got it. He responds rapidly, and we all respond rapidly within a limit. We can't be with a patient and Tiger texting. That's not professional. But as soon as you're away from the patient, then you can respond to the Tiger text if it's targeted to you. So remember, it is a professional area, so don't take shortcuts in your time, because I won't understand them. I just don't know all of those shortcuts that people take on texting, so it would be Greek to me. So remember to put the full words in, and remember your punctuation marks. Otherwise it's a run-on sentence, and I'll read it as a run-on sentence and not know what you want. So remember those politeness and boundaries and professionalism and pleasantries, and it's always good to say thank you. Technology security, know that all of our electronics are secure. They are password protected. Our emails are password protected. Tiger Text is password protected. Laptops are password protected. Cell phones are password protected. And that is HIPAA, EMR, electronic, everything is privacy and protected. We need to keep that in mind, so when you're documenting, if there's people around you, are they behind you looking over your shoulder? Then it's not a good area to be documenting in. Always try to document where you are private. If that best scenario is bedside documentation. Best scenario is if you can't do bedside documentation, then document in the facility or in another room in the home. If that's not possible, document in the car. If that's not possible, go to a parking lot and document. If you go to Starbucks, make sure your back is to the wall and you're in a corner so people can't see what you're documenting. Also, it's all protected and secure, and we need to protect our patients' privacy, and that's what it's all about. I think this will be a good place to stop and take questions if anyone has questions.